Yes.
It's 6 p.m. and this is the Saturday 5. Welcome to the Saturday 5. Well, hey, what a week. What a week. If you missed seeing the Northern Lights across Britain the other day, don't worry, the real Northern Light is right here on the Saturday 5. You're very welcome. Now, Downing Street said the public would decide if Labour's first 100 days have been successful. I'd happily answer that for them, but I'm fairly certain I'll be cancelled faster than the reviews for Carol Vorderman's latest lefty-lovey book on Amazon. Now, up in Scotland, the Scottish Government decided to give free travel to asylum seekers, free mobiles, accommodation, energy and now bus passes. I say, well, why wouldn't you come to the United Kingdom? I've packed my bag, tossed my passport into the Tyne and I'm heading up to Scotland for an easy life, tax-free. And Yvette Cooper's managed to nab herself some Taylor Swift tickets, it turns out, as well. At this rate, I'm wondering if I missed the fact that Labour held their conference at Wembley Arena, given the number of freebies flying around. But hey, Starmer's set a precedent to see them pay it back, so grab your popcorn and Labour Party politicians, grab your credit cards. Now, though, on to the real action. Joining me today, we've got the sharp-witted Dr. Renee, ready to slice through the nonsense like a scalpel in a woke minefield. And on the opposite end, we've dragged in Andy Twelves, our resident trade unionist and full-time woke warrior. Brace yourselves, folks. And then next, we've got Will Kingston from Specky Oz, bringing a fresh perspective and hopefully reminding us that common sense hasn't completely died down under. Life won't be easy under Albanese, eh? And last but not least, the always on point Emma Webb, ready to bring some clarity and good old-fashioned common sense. She's just come back from the land of the cowboy. Yee-haw, giddy up. Right, let's get stuck in. You know the drill. Each host outlines their argument about a chosen topic, then we all pile in. And of course, we want your views as well. Please do send your comments to gbnews.com/your say. And don't forget to get your questions in for Ask the Five. No topic is off limits. But before we get into all that, tear each other apart, it's a Saturday Night News with Sam Francis.
Darren, thank you very much and good evening to you. It's just gone 6 o'clock. We start this hour with a recap of the breaking news we've been bringing you in the last half hour or so, that the former First Minister of Scotland, Alex Salmond, regarded by many as a titan of Scottish politics, has today died at the age of 69. He was giving a speech in North Macedonia this morning and it's understood he died some point after that event. Well, Salmond was First Minister between 2007 and 2014, leading the SNP to historic victories, including a majority in the 2011 Scottish Parliament election. He was also instrumental in the 2014 independence referendum, a campaign that ultimately ended in defeat. And then following that defeat, Salmond announced he would resign as First Minister and also as SNP leader. His deputy, Nicola Sturgeon, then succeeded him in both of those roles. His time in office marked by significant political achievements, controversial decisions and what some would regard as a relentless pursuit of Scottish independence. Well, that loss is, as expected, being felt across the political landscape. We've had some statements on social media. First, here you can see from the Scottish Labour leader, Anna Sawa. He has paid tribute to Salmond, describing him as a central figure of politics for over 3 decades. Former Prime Minister Rishi Sunak also posting in just the last few minutes, saying Alex Salmond was a huge figure in politics. He says, while I disagreed with him on the constitutional question, there was no denying his skill in debate or his passion for politics. May he rest in peace. And I'm just reading here a statement in from the Prime Minister, also Sir Keir Starmer, saying that for more than 30 years, Alex Salmond was a monumental figure of Scottish and UK politics, saying he leaves behind a lasting legacy. As First Minister of Scotland, Sir Keir Starmer says Alex Salmond cared deeply about Scotland's heritage, its history and culture. I offer his family the condolences they deserve today. So that news just into us in the last hour or so, that Alex Salmond, former First Minister of Scotland, has died today at the age of 69. Turning to other news tonight, and 100 days in, Sir Keir Starmer admits, well, it hasn't been smooth sailing. In a video posted on social media, the Prime Minister's been reflecting on Labour's landslide win in July, but acknowledged choppy days since taking office. When asked if he thought his start had been successful, his spokesperson said it's up to the public to decide. Sir Keir Starmer's also used the landmark 100 days to criticise 14 years of Conservative rule, calling it a period of failure. Despite challenges, though, with party management and slipping poll numbers, he's vowed to press ahead with his agenda.
Today marks 100 days of my Labour government. Before that, 14 years of Tory failure. 14 years is a long time to cause damage. 100 days isn't much time to fix it. I will level with you. The scale of the damage is huge, but I will take the tough decisions to fix the foundations of our country, to deliver the long-term change we need, the change that you voted for. The next 100 days starts now, and I won't waste a moment.
Sir Keir Starmer there posting that video message on social media today, marking 100 days in office. The owner of P&O Ferries will attend a major investment summit next week, despite strong criticism from Louise Hay, the Transport Secretary. She'd called for a boycott on P&O after it sacked 800 British staff last year, a move she described as a national scandal. Reports suggested that her remarks may have jeopardised a £1 billion investment in the UK by the ferry firm's parent company. But Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer has since distanced himself and the government from that call for a boycott, saying the situation will be resolved. GB News can reveal tonight that an average of 135 migrants have crossed the English Channel in small boats each day since Sir Keir Starmer took office, with now over 13,500 arriving since the 5th of July election. Today alone, more than 400 migrants made the perilous journey from France, pushing the total for the year to now nearly 27,200. With the winter months fast approaching, authorities say they're concerned that criminal gangs could increasingly risk migrants' lives in the difficult weather conditions. But a Home Office spokesperson says that they are committed to dismantling people smuggling operations, saying the government will stop at nothing to bring criminals to justice. We've heard tonight that a woman has died after falling overboard from a cruise ship near the Channel Islands. A major rescue operation was launched after the French Coast Guard received a distress message shortly after midnight. Despite their best efforts, the woman was sadly pronounced dead after being recovered from the water and being brought to a rescue centre. The cruise ship is now docked in Southampton as an investigation begins into that incident. And we'll finish this update with just a recap on that breaking news that we brought you in the last half hour or so, that the former First Minister of Scotland, regarded by many as a titan of Scottish politics, that is, of course, Alex Salmond, has sadly died today at the age of 69. This morning, he was giving a speech in North Macedonia. It's understood he died at some point after that event. Tributes starting to pour in to remember the titan of Scottish politics, Alex Salmond. In the last few minutes, we've heard from the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, saying that for more than 30 years, Mr Salmond was, he says, a monumental figure of both Scottish and UK politics, leaving behind a lasting legacy. As First Minister of Scotland, Sir Keir Starmer says he cared deeply about Scotland's heritage, its history and culture. He has said on behalf of the UK government, he offers his condolences to those that knew Alex Salmond, his family and his loved ones. Plenty more on that breaking news throughout the rest of this evening here on GB News as we mark the death of Alex Salmond, aged 69 tonight. Now, though, it's back to the Saturday 5.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
It's Saturday night and you're with the Saturday 5. I'm Darren Grimes and I can promise that you're in for a very lively show. First of all, though, we of course have to talk about the tragic death of former SNP leader Alex Salmond. Alex Salmond, I think it was safe to say, was a tartan titan. He has, of course, passed away at the age of 69, but he leaves a legacy as the former First Minister of Scotland, a major figure in Scottish politics, even today. And he died after giving a speech in North Macedonia earlier on. Now, Salmond was instrumental in actually transforming the Scottish National Party from the fringes of party politics into a political powerhouse. He played a pivotal role in paving the way to the 2014 independence referendum, but then, of course, campaigning throughout it to get them to that 45% vote share that they managed to secure. After stepping down as First Minister following the referendum, he later founded the Alba Party in 2021, continuing his advocacy for Scottish independence until his death. Now, Salmond, I repeat that, was a political titan, that tartan titan, dedicating his entire life to what he believed in and never actually deviating from those principles. I say this to you, my friends, like him or loathe him, he was a different breed of politician to much of the current crop of politicos today. Now, his legacy, it remains deeply entwined with Scotland's political landscape, and I think he's one that'll go down in Scotland's history books. I really, really do. Panel, I mean, I remember 2014 really quite well. I went up for the referendum as my sort of first foray into British politics and getting involved in activism. And it was intense, to say the least. But he was pivotal in bringing that about. That never would have happened without him. You know, do you think we are actually losing a crop of politicians who are as principled? And I repeat, even if you are the most staunch unionist of which I am, you can recognise that he believed in that all his life and wasn't willing to deviate from that. And I think that I have a tremendous amount of respect for that.
Absolutely. I think what we're losing is we're losing conviction politicians who actually are characters, because we seem in life now to be just squashing characters as being bad somehow and not to be encouraged because everybody needs to be the same, i.e. bland and boring. And Alex Salmond was anything but bland or boring. And he was a Marmite character. You either loved him or hated him in politics, as it were. But he did propel that movement exactly where it got to. And that was a major move to the referendum. And then, of course, he eventually handed over to Nicola Sturgeon, his protégé. And he must have looked on at what happened thereafter, actually, with great sadness, I think.
Yeah, undoubtedly.
He was a conviction politician, but the fact is they were the wrong convictions. Now, I know we're meant to say nice things when someone passed away, and they were lovely words, Darren, but the fact of the matter is, here's the truth, Scotland is beset by social and economic problems today. It is in a worse position than it was 25 years ago, and that is overwhelmingly the result of poor SNP governance that he was a big part of. And I think that conviction around independence was a big reason for them not focusing on other issues. So I appreciate that we need to look at a mixed political legacy, but the harsh truth is Scotland is in a worse place today than it once was, and he plays a role in that.
I definitely agree with Will's assessment, but I do think, and you said it, Darren, that, you know, he's of a higher calibre of politician than we're used to seeing now.
He was a fantastic orator.
And one of the things that I think we forget is how important it is actually for our opposition to be of a high calibre too. So even if, you know, as you're correct in your assessment, I think, of his legacy, of the legacy of the SNP in Scotland, Nicola Sturgeon is not of the same calibre politician as Salmond was. And I think that, you know, it's really fundamental to the proper functioning of a democracy to have people of that calibre. And when you start to see that generation of non-mediocre politicians starting to pass away, I think we're finding ourselves at a bit of a political twilight at the moment, and I think it's possible to recognise that in the loss of someone like Alex Salmond, even if we very fundamentally, as I do, disagree with his political opinions.
Yeah, I mean, Adrian, who's a member of GB News as well, said whatever his political persuasion was, he will be missed by many, and that's undoubtedly true. You know, despite that legacy that Will argues has been left behind in Scotland, he will be missed by members of the Scottish National Party, and there are still a lot of those. They were one of the largest parties in Europe.
Well, and the Alba Party.
Yeah, and the Alba Party, of course.
He should be missed also by by his political opposition, just simply because it's very important to have high caliber people to rub up against.
Yeah, Andy?
I mean, there's not much more to say, really. You know, he was such a political beast and a real kind of... if you look at that generation, particularly of Scottish politicians, you look at people like Gordon Brown, Alex Salmond, Douglas Alexander, these really talented orators who, you know, as you said, you disagree with their politics. Well, I agree with quite a lot of their politics, but they were of such a calibre that there was no real opposition to them in any meaningful form. You know, the SNP have run Scotland for, the better part of 20 years, and that is because of the legacy of Alex Salmond, both as leader and as his protégé, Nicola Sturgeon, took it on, and even Humza Yousaf, who now former First Minister, he was also a protégé of Alex Salmond, so his lasting legacy on Scottish politics cannot be ignored.
Well, I mean, Alex famously, though, called him Humza the Brief, so I'm not sure there was any love lost there.
Presumably that doesn't mean he was on top of it.
No, indeed.
And 69, we mustn't forget, 69 is no age now.
No.
You know, the average life expectancy is about 80 for a man.
Yeah.
So 69 is too soon.
Well, I think he lived and enjoyed life.
He did enjoy life.
I've got the thing which I reflect on is there have been some substantial figures that have been mentioned here, and Emma, you said we don't see as many substantial figures in politics today. You know, you look at Kamala Harris, you look at Starmer, you look at Albanese in Australia. We have less of these people, and I think it's worth pondering why.
Yeah, indeed. Right, OK, we'll move on from that, but there will be updates, of course, throughout the night on Alex Salmond's passing away. Right, who's going to go next then?
It's me.
Oh, well, don't hold back. I mean, you didn't then. Gracious.
Yeah, it's only up from here. Someone in the Met has finally said the quiet part out loud. Last week, in an interview with GB News, the chair of the Met Police Federation, Rick Pryor, admitted that officers are no longer officiating without fear or favour for Londoners of all backgrounds. He said, following a string of vexatious investigations against officers from the Independent Office for Police Conduct, that officers are now afraid to call out bad behaviour from people from ethnic minority backgrounds for fear that they'll be smeared as a racist. Now, what did he get for this act of truth-telling? A suspension that may end his career. There are two stories here. There is the story that we all know, and that is that two-tier policing in the United Kingdom is real. It is being driven by a police establishment that has been infected by identity politics and egged on by Keir Starmer and Sadiq Khan. But the other story is that this is a culture that is rotten to the core. If you dare to speak up, if you dare to say the truth, you will be silenced, you will be punished. This is once great British institution, and I fear its reputation, which is in tatters, is beyond salvaging.
Yeah, I absolutely couldn't agree more. We do have a statement here from the Metropolitan Police Federation that I will read out. The Metropolitan Police Federation are aware that Chair Rick Pryor has been placed under investigation by the Police Federation of England and Wales. While this investigation takes place, Rick has been asked to step back from all Federation duties. The MPF are supporting Rick through this process. We hope that this matter is resolved swiftly. I mean, it gets to the heart of the entire problem with British policing, right? We're told ad nauseum that there is no such thing as two-tier policing. We had, of course, the Bianca case the other day where the police officers were given their jobs back after doing a stop and search. Stop and search is a key tool in prevention of stabbing and, knife crime. Now, it should be utilised more, if you ask me. Would you be upset if you were stopped and searched on the street? I think it is a nonsense to accuse everything of an ism or a phobia in the name of some social justice woke nonsense. BS, frankly, if I can use that acronym at this hour. So I have no time for it. I have absolute time for Rick Pryor. I wish him all the very best. But I think it is of detriment to British police and that we're losing figures like him who are willing to put their head above the parapet and actually say what needs to be said, because we are binding the hands of British policing in this woke nonsense that led to the grooming gangs. It led to turning, in the security services at least, turning a blind eye to the Manchester Arena case, because the fella on security said that he was worried he'd be accused of racism if he stopped the fella who did indeed have a bomb in his bag.
And children died.
Children died as a consequence. We have to get over this puerile nonsense where we are without a backbone in the most jellyfish-like fashion that leads to the loss of life.
Yeah.
I can't stand it. Let's move on from this. I don't care what you accuse me of, and we shouldn't care what British policing is accused of if they are doing their jobs and allowed to do it, like Robert Peel set out, without fear, without favour.
And actually, if they cared about policing properly and they cared about public trust, they would stand by him and stand by his statements rather than gaslighting the public. We have eyes. We experience this ourselves. When other communities experience certain things, it's all about their lived experience. But when you talk about, you know, the British as a whole and the experience of policing, it is demonstrably two-tier. I mean, it's so difficult to argue with that it can be nothing but gaslighting to suggest otherwise. So if they really wanted to, like I say, you know, police properly and they cared about law and order, and I really think that this is, you know, part of the reason why we have such a problem with spiralling crime, because there are some people who just think that they can get away with anything because the police won't bother to investigate it. Yeah. The problem goes to the soul of policing in this country. It's not just a sort of surface level two-tier thing.
Well, and we have seen it with our own eyes. We saw just before the Southport riots, we saw in Huddersfield, is it, in Leeds, we saw in Whitechapel, we saw riots that were being carried out by ethnic communities that were just being left hands off policing, standing back, watching people carrying knives, asking them politely to put them in the local mosques. That was fine. But then anywhere else, we saw the uprising around the 3 girls that got stabbed and the police went crazy and people went to prison.
Andy, Shirley's commented, and Shirley says, I thought whistleblowers were supposed to be protected, right? Shame on Starmer. Well, she mentioned Starmer there.
I'm not quite sure. You know,
it's probably his fault in some way.
Perhaps he wasn't too pleased with the comments, who knows? But the key point there about protecting whistleblowers, surely he has a right to say this, or do you think actually it's fair play? Maybe he needs some of these workers' protections.
Well, absolutely. And you know, if you was watching later, they'll hear me talking about that. But I think there is a key distinction to be made here, that there's a difference between speaking out against an issue and whistleblowing. I think the term is being misused there. He wasn't whistleblowing, he was speaking on a more cultural issue. Whistleblowing would be a specific incident where he's been suppressed by a manager for speaking out against it. It's not whistleblowing.
When it comes to police and trade unions, as with all other trade unions...
Well, we don't have trade unions. The police don't have trade unions.
They have the federation that's supposed to be there for them.
So there's no industrial rights.
But do you think, actually, that this is a sign that these groups like the federation and, dare I say it, all the other trade unions not representing the police, if you say certain things, you are beyond the pale and you won't be protected by them?
Well, I think... No, I don't think that's...
I don't think there's a point in being a member of a trade union anymore.
Well, I think, you know, the 4 million people that are members of trade unions would disagree with you there.
I think quote-unquote racist. Then.
Well, no, I think, you know, he holds an elected position within a membership organisation. I hold elected positions within the trade union movement. If I said something that the wider movement disagreed with, I would probably be suspended from those elected positions. That would happen anything. That would happen across anywhere. If, you know, Darren, if you would say something that was very against what GB News thought, you'd probably be suspended. That's the case in any position.
But I think
it's not a membership organisation or trade union issue.
But this is the fundamental problem. Why do they not think that? We can all see that two-tier policing is a thing. We all know this. He's speaking the absolute obvious. That's the real problem, is that they can't see this. And the fact that they're now trying to cover up is the real issue that we need to be talking about and need to address.
Indeed, I agree. Right, still to come tonight, the Director General of MI5 had some interesting things to say about the terror threat in this country. And by the way, it ain't what you hear in the media every other day. Now, we'll discuss that shortly, but next, the Work and Pensions Secretary, Liz Kendall MP, is considering cutting benefits for those with mild mental health issues. Will Labour go through with that? You're with the Saturday 5, live on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Trust Director General has said something rather curious. She's admitted that 70% of the charity's staff are Union Jack-hating progressive activists. Yes, this was speaking at a Labour Party fringe event. The boss of the charity, Hilary McGrady, acknowledged that there was a gap between her staff's views and the views held by the wider public. So was she being honest? Joining me now to discuss this is historian and broadcaster Rafe Hadelman-Koo, who I believe is with me. Rafe, thank you very much indeed. Can this be true?
The founders of the National Trust and later figures involved in it, like my hero James Lees-Milne, were really motivated by love of nation. But I think that love of nation in the Trust has become actively, national self-loathing. And that's really the state of modern Britain. And with the Trust, I mean, what we've done is we've actually entrusted our national heritage to those people who actually actively despise our national heritage, and it's utter madness.
Have these people wanted to take over charities like the National Trust for their political ends, or is it just something that happens? Is it just the type of people who work in charities?
This has been part of the long march through the institutions, that people need to understand that Britain is now a post-revolutionary society. So the buildings that house our institutions look the same, but the people who now run them bear no comparison to the generations who lovingly built and ran them. They are cuckoos in the nest, and we need to understand that. And of course, once you realize that, of course, that explains completely why, the National Trust and others have crudely tried to denigrate our national heroes and link them and their houses to colonialism and slavery, as they ludicrously tried to do.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. As always, thank you very much for your messages about tonight's topics. A lot of you are messaging in very concerned about my sort of pubescent growth of facial hair. And it's not a thing. All it is I left my electric razor in the northeast of England. So if any of you who are twisting on gbnews.com/yoursay wants to Amazon Prime me an electric razor, a very expensive one, it has to be said, then I'd be all for it, and I will shave live on national television.
Oh my God.
But until then, it ain't going to happen, I'm afraid. You're going to have to just get used to this little growth. It's not as good as his. But anyway, the rest of you are saying, well, John wants to know, and we'll get on to this later, but John asks the question, who is diagnosing these mental health conditions? Most of us can't get to see a GP. Who the hell is signing these people off of work? And Claudette says, on the point of the trade unions, Labour didn't suspend Louise Hay for her statements on the P&O ferries. That was a statement that went against the Labour line, number 10 line. She should have been out. That came from Andy.
Well, I did say I actually support Louise Hay on that. I don't stand with Andy.
Poor Louise Hay, you've got rid of her.
You're a hypocrite, Andy.
Yeah, she's going to have to be unable to afford that hair dye, and you did it to her. Honestly, she's red. She looks like a cockatoo or something. Anyway, right, up next. Who's going next, actually?
Me?
Oh, you're going to really go for the jugular on this one.
OK, so there is a story today that Rachel Reeves is considering cutting benefits in her next budget for people who have mild mental disorders. That isn't qualified as what that includes. But I think she should be brave, and for once I actually agree with something that she's suggesting, and she should do it. She shouldn't just think about mild mental illness either. She should consider physical diseases. There are a record 2.8 million people on long-term sick. Incapacity benefit has reached 23 billion, and disability payments, which are paid regardless of whether somebody could work in some role, are expected expected to reach 48 billion. Sluggish growth and greater demand makes this continual search to keep certain people out of the workplace impossible to sustain. We are going bust. Of course, there are some illnesses that preclude people from working. Of course there are. But whether a mental health problem or a physical problem, I struggle to think of more than a minority where people couldn't do something meaningful. And as a doctor, we know that working is actually the best medicine to recover from depression, low mood, and that kind of mental health illness. However, all we are seeing is the fit notes that doctors are issuing, because honestly, when you are the barrier to money, trust me, saying no is not really an option, because that person will never see you again and will just go to the next doctor who will issue the note, first for a couple of weeks, then a couple of months, and then inevitably for a few years, and so it goes on. I would say that if you can sit at home in a chair, on a sofa, you can work. So if your hip needs replacing or your shoulder hurts and you're a painter and decorator, of course you can't do that. But you could work from your laptop. Working used to be the respectable thing to do. Men used to cover their faces with newspapers as they queued up outside the unemployment office because it was a social embarrassment to be claiming benefit. Everybody felt the need and duty to work. The work ethic seems to have been long lost, and we need to bring it back.
Can I ask you a question?
You can.
Is that okay?
I'm not
I'm stealing your role as a presenter.
No, you absolutely can. We're all presenters here.
I'm just curious to know whether it's possible for a GP to refuse to sign someone off. So if somebody came to you, for example, with a physical ailment that you thought, well, that's not really, doesn't really justify signing you off, you could work if you wanted to.
I mean, look, in theory, but it just doesn't work that way, because you've got the person in front of you saying, well, no, I can't work. And you know that the relationship will break down at that point. GP should not be the issuer of fit notes because it's a barrier to money.
Yeah.
I think this could potentially be the start of a more nuanced conversation around mental health. So we all know that mental health is serious, it is real, but at the same time, it has become the get-out-of-jail-free card of our time. That's why every celebrity now, whenever they do something wrong, mental health is the first thing that they say. So these minor conditions, which I think are being suggested, are potentially a good way to try and just get that balance a bit more in order.
You know, Renee, if allow me to be sort of sickeningly personal for a minute, but during lockdown, I went completely doolally, like completely off my rocker. Well, whatever semblance of sanity I did have, it didn't come back. And I didn't realise how much I relied on social interaction.
Exactly.
And I always considered myself to be sort of an introverted extrovert. Like, I have to force myself into situations with a lot of people. Now, at that point, could not have done a job. Like, at that point, I had to take some time out.
Fine.
How do we actually distinguish between... I could have been lying about that, right? I could have been saying to my employees at the time, well, you know, I want to sit out on where I lived at the time, Clapham Common, have some drinks, and I had a good old time. And I didn't do that, by the way, but how do we actually make the difference between the two? How do we separate the two, who are the chances, from those who are genuinely...
It's really, really hard. And obviously, as we don't have family doctors anymore that get to know a patient as well as they used to, it becomes even harder. I always just try and explain to people who are going off sick for a short time, of course, if somebody's got something, a life stressor, a sudden deterioration, and you can see that they need just a break from something for a couple of weeks or months, that's absolutely fine. But I then have the conversation, because these stats are staggering. The stats show that if you spend more than 6 months out of work, on a fit note, because of whatever
I certainly didn't do that, to be clear.
6 months, you are unlikely to ever return to work.
Right, yeah.
At all.
So it's just like a stasis. I mean, come on, Mr. Trade Union, what are you thinking about this?
Well, the issue of it is, as Renee highlighted, that they haven't given a definition or any particular indication on what mild mental health means. I mean, you know, mental health's a pretty big spectrum. You know, at one end you've got slight anxiety, at the other end you've got schizophrenia.
Yeah,
so I think mild is...
You don't have to be Dr. Renee to figure that one out, though, do you?
Well, even Dr. Renee can't figure it out because they haven't given the definition.
Oh, I've split up with my boyfriend.
Well, I had that this
not
week.
Been the same since. You split up with your boyfriend?
No. I actually had that presented to me as a problem. That I've had a traumatic breakup, and it's really, really stressful.
I thought, my God, we really are getting personal on this show.
So what I did do is I did say, OK, fine, a couple of weeks to just sort yourself out, get things sorted. But after that, I think I should be able to say, well, that's enough now, come on.
But shouldn't that be something that you're able to talk to your employer about? You don't have to go and have, you know, a doctor actually sign you off sick, especially at a time when you have all these people on TikTok who are self-diagnosing as having multiple personality disorder and tics and all sorts of things, ADHD, autism, and it's become, in a way, fashionable to have some... So, in a sense, it's almost like it's in the air to be a bit neurodivergent. And so you can see how, you know, that might lead people to...
Just to add to that, Grumpy Grandad says they should start looking... is actually his username. Grumpy
Sounds like my kind of guy.
They should start looking at these people claiming to have mental health issues in the last 5 years. He says it's ridiculous how many people are saying they've got mental health issues because it's got to be taking away treatment from people that really do have problems. And the waiting lists are absolutely huge on the NHS.
Yeah, I mean, mental health now.
You say, oh, I'm going to off myself, and they say, oh, go have a bath or something, like, you know.
And they say, here, I'll do some online CBT and go away, but you wait 18 months for them to tell you that. I mean, 22% of working people are economically inactive. As a society, we cannot continue.
But we're also being encouraged to not be resilient.
Yes,
so I think it's like you said, Renee, you know, at least in the past we had a sense of sort of shame at not working, whereas now the culture actually, for a lot of young people, is unfortunately to just avoid work.
All right. Now, my friends, still to come tonight, and I would argue that not working makes you more depressed, so it's a vicious cycle. Still to come tonight, Labour are shaking up workers' rights with a new employment rights bill. What does this mean for the government's relationship with the trade unions? Money, money, money makes it sunny. Next, though, Director General of MI5, Ken McCallum, had a stark warning about terror here in the United Kingdom earlier this week. But did you catch all the details? Because I tell you what, it runs against the narrative. We'll explore all of that next. You're with the Saturday 5 live on GB News.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. We've got plenty of fine weather in store across the UK over the next day or so, but as we head into the new working week, things will turn more unsettled. We'll see some rain developing at times, but all the while, those temperatures starting to climb as well. At the moment, low pressure is moving off the scene out into the North Sea. That's allowing a ridge of high pressure to build in from the west, so things starting to quieten down, but a bit of a chilly northerly breeze developing as well. And certainly as we go into the overnight period, we'll hold on to quite a few showers in that northerly airstream across the north and northeast of the UK. Some wintry showers across the high ground in Scotland, but things will start to quieten down from the west as that ridge of high pressure builds in. Lots of clear weather developing, and certainly by the morning on Sunday, a touch of frost forming, particularly across the north of the UK where temperatures will dip below freezing. As for Sunday itself, then, we'll get off to a pretty showery start again, once up towards the north and northeast of Scotland. Again, a few of those showers a little bit on the wintry side across the mountains. Quite a keen northwesterly breeze still blowing here too. Further south across southwest Scotland into Northern Ireland and the north of England, mostly fine. Plenty of sunshine, although some high clouds starting to come in across Northern Ireland, turning that sunshine a little bit hazy. Quite hazy the sunshine too across parts of Wales and southwest England. So the best of the sunshine to start the day generally the further east you go. And we hold on to quite a bit of sunshine across many eastern parts of the UK through the day on Sunday. The showers in the far northeast tend to fade away. That brisk wind also easing through the day. But notice out towards the west, clouds starting to come in from the west there. And we'll start to see some patchy rain developing across parts of Northern Ireland and the west of Scotland by the very end of the day on Sunday. A chilly day up and down the country, highs no better than 7 to 9 Celsius in the north, perhaps up to 11 or 12 at best towards the south and southwest. As for Monday, well, a very unsettled day developing across the south of the UK. Cloudy skies, outbreaks of rain, especially during the morning. Rain towards the northwest starting to ease. All in all, things improving into the afternoon, the rain in the south easing, skies starting to brighten elsewhere. Things though turning generally unsettled into the coming week. Rain at times, but notice those temperatures also on the climb up to the high teens in Celsius.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about?
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. Thank you very much for all of your emails. Lots of them, of course, with comments, a wide array of views on the legacy of the late Alex Salmond, who has passed away at the age of 69. Many of you also agree with, well, I mean, there's lots of love for Grumpy Grandad on here, actually. Because, well, actually, Karen's just commented and saying, I love Grumpy Grandad, but I feel ignored. Well, Karen, I'm not ignoring you. I've just read you out. Sue
Such
says...
a Karen thing to say.
Karen.
He went there.
I
He
will
went
hear
there.
nothing said about my cars. Leave her alone. And Susan says, hi, Darren and panel. It sounds to me that the mental health illness is the new bad back. We never used to hear about mental health problems a few years ago. Now it's an excuse for almost everything, including horrendous crimes. Which is a point, actually.
Was bad back a thing?
Oh, yeah.
Bad back
Everyone
is still a
had
thing, let me tell you.
Well, yeah.
I mean, in fairness, on a mental health rise, it's not like we locked everyone in their houses for 2 years, and that might have caused some problems.
Goodness me, we found Sandy's soundest opinion.
Richard has a point that leads us on to our next... Oh, no, it doesn't. It leads us on to our last debate. But Richard says, it mainly started when Maggie Thatcher decided it was more economical to put people on the dole or sick than create jobs for people. A lot of us learnt the basics of playing the game in that period and passed the knowledge on to those that came after us. Looking back, that was one of the worst things she did, as it led to us being where we are now.
That's really weird, though, because I grew up with Maggie Thatcher and I had nothing but you must work hard, do the best you can.
In fairness, you know, did you live in an area where she was ransacking the industries?
Well, I did.
No, I get that, and I do get that, but I did grow up in the East End of London where it was pretty tough.
Okay,
I don't doubt it.
Right, we're going to go to the Webinator next. Emma, what have you got for us?
Well, as Darren said, this next one doesn't quite fit the narrative. So, an MI5 spokesman in a briefing has said the opposite to what we're always told, which is that the real threat comes from the far right and people are being arrested for tweets left, right and centre. But let's just take a little look at this.
The headline split of our counter-terrorist work remains roughly 75% Islamist extremist, 25% extreme right-wing terrorism. But under that headline, much has shifted.
So, the next time that somebody says to you that the real biggest threat, not to say that it's not a threat, but that the biggest threat comes from the far right, you can cite that statistic. 75% of the threat comes from Islamists. Another aspect of this, of course, is that we all know that this threat is aggravated by porous borders. Islamists have been using the migrant crisis from the very start. And so it's even more important that we have this enormous problem on our hands with the ECHR. One of the reasons why both Tory leaders are making it part of their campaigns to leave the ECHR. So this week also we've seen two really significant pieces of evidence as to why the ECHR is putting British lives at risk. One of them is an Albanian murderer, somebody who was convicted in absentia in Albania, who has been ruled by the ECHR to stay here in the UK on the basis of his right to a free trial because he was convicted in absentia in Albania, and also on his right to a family life. Now, he came here in 1998 after this alleged murder and pretended to be from Kosovo. His family then joined him in 2000, weren't given asylum, but were, for some reason, given indefinite leave to remain. So what kind of family life are we talking about here? Well, one of his sons is in prison for 18 years for trafficking cocaine. His daughter is in prison for 4 years for supplying Class A and Class B drugs. So they said that the reason why he should stay here is because it would be unduly harsh on his family if he were to be deported. So that's what we're talking about there. And also this week, we've seen the sentencing of the Kurdish man, homeless Kurdish man, who pushed a stranger, postman, onto the tracks of the tube. He's just been sentenced for 8 years. But this actually took place while he was in the process of appealing his deportation for sex crimes. 21 offences: assault, antisocial behaviour, outraging public decency. They said he had a pattern of regular, serious offending, but, of course, we had to keep him here. And he will stay here. He'll stay in British prisons, and who knows whether or not we'll be able to deport him.
Absolutely. So we're all still paying for him. Do you know what gets me is that the fella that pushed the postman onto the rail tracks, and he almost touched live electric wire on the Victoria line here in London. And this guy had been refused asylum in France and Germany, but then he gets to Britain, the ultimate international mug, and we say, oh, well, I don't see why we would throw him out, you know, come one, come all. He'd thrown his documents overboard, he lost all of those, he got to stay here, now he's staying at His Majesty's pleasure, and we're all going to have to pay for him. I think frankly, it shows the political class for the weakness and inability to actually act and keep us all safe.
The thing is, we're being treated like complete doormats.
Yes.
And even when we try to do something
doormat.
about this, we just simply can't do it. So this guy, this Albanian guy that I mentioned, he actually went to prison for 33 months after he was given citizenship. He went to prison for 33 months for lying to get his passport. So the Home Office tried to deport him, and also the Albanians tried to extradite him so that he could be properly sentenced for this alleged murder that he'd committed in Albania, which was very serious, by the way, shooting somebody in the face with a Kalashnikov.
Which is a massive gun, isn't it? Like a machine gun.
But the point is that we can't seem to do anything about it, whereas when it comes going back to the Islamist point, we can arrest people for holding up a sign that says Hamas are terrorists for a public order offence because, they might be mobbed by the crowd who are, pro-Hamas, I suppose. And we have
Hezbollah ones.
You have people like Kay Burley questioning Robert Jenrick.
We've got to get through.
There's two very quick bits here. The first is that everything you have just said should be an advert for leaving the ECHR. There should be no other argument. That should be enough. But then secondly, we must be able to talk about this massive threat from Islamist extremists who are amongst us and come in every day.
All right.
It's a complete misuse of human
We'll have to leave that there because we've got to get to our trade unionist in chief. Still to come tonight, we'll be joined by the former Tory MP, Jerry Hayes. He's got some views on the Tory leadership election. And if you like Robert Jenrick, well, hold on to your seat. And next, the Labour Party are shaking up workers' rights here in the United Kingdom. But what does the new Employment Rights Bill mean for the relationship between government and union? You're with the Saturday 5 live on GB News.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player app. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Right, up and down the country, many parents are preparing or have indeed already sent their child off to university.
Indeed, but sometimes it can leave parents struggling to cope with the, quote, empty nest syndrome their child leaves behind. So joining us now to discuss how to cope with sending off your sprogs to university, or not so sprogs, is broadcaster and psychotherapist Lucy Beresford. Good morning, Lucy. Nice to see you this early. This is a real thing, isn't it? It's our colleague Paul Coates, our sports expert, describes it as grief, sending your young adults off to uni and leaving the nest for the first time.
Yes, I think grief is the right word because it's an ending.
And it's not just an ending with your relationship with your child. It changes from here on in. But it also is very much about your identity. Your identity as a parent is weakening. You'll always be that child's parent, but you're not going to have the same involvement on a daily basis. And so you're left to think, okay, well, what does my life look like going forward? What's my relationship? If you're in a relationship with a partner, how is that going to change? And like all elements of grief, there's going to be a bit of a process. There's going to be that transition period where you adjust to your new life, just as your sprogs, as you call them, are adjusting to their new, exciting phase of their life.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Conservative MPs have finally chosen their top 2 for the leadership. And now, it's over to the members. Join me, Christopher Hope, on Thursday as Kevin Badenoch and Robert Jenrick are quizzed by Conservative Party members and myself at our GB News leadership event.
And afterwards, join me, Patrick Christys, with a live studio audience and a star panel as we discuss what it means for the Conservative Party and what it means for you. Decision Time, the race to lead, from 7 p.m. this Thursday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday Five. Now, of course, lots of your messages saying condolences for Alex Salmond, who's passed away at the age of 69. More on that later in the show. Right, who's going to go next then?
I believe it's me.
Yes, so take it away, Lefty.
Earlier this week, the government have unveiled the new Employment Rights Bill, which has been a long-standing project of trade unions and those on the left and those that work in workers' rights organisations, and it is going to revolutionise workers' rights. It's the biggest bolstering of them in nearly 30 years. There are going to be basic rights from day one, the end of exploitative zero-hour contracts while still allowing those that find them beneficial to remain on them, ending fire and rehire, repealing the archaic anti-union legislation that both Thatcher and Johnson and Sunak brought in, stronger dismissal protections for pregnant women and new mothers, better paternity and maternity leave, statutory sick pay. These are all great things, but of course I think they're great. But let's listen to the employers. Opinion did some research, and 60% of employers said employees should have more security at work. 73% said that strengthened rights will boost productivity, and 61% said that stronger employer rights will have a positive impact on business profitability. So it's not just the Labour Party and the trade unions that are saying this. This is employers that are backing this legislation, and I can't wait to see it enacted.
Oh, please, I've heard it all now. What a load of drivel.
It's true, Opinion did the research.
That's like saying, Attila the Hun has called for world peace. Yeah, I bet he did. It sounds lovely on the tin, but they don't want it in practice, do they?
It's going to put a load of companies will go out of business, and then they won't have a right to work anywhere because there'll be no companies to employ them.
What would put them out of business? Which of those measures would put them out of business?
What's going to happen, Andy, is that small businesses, which are actually the biggest employer in this country, when all added together, are just not going to employ young women of childbearing age because they won't be able to bear the weight of the extra responsibility. That's what's going to happen. So well done, unions.
And
also by protecting pregnant women and new mothers. That's a bad thing.
Protecting them once they're employed, but they won't get employed in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. So women in the workplace will be held back because of your noose of regulation.
And also, Andy, as a woman in the workplace, I would quite like my employer's right to have a zero-hours contract.
Well, you do have that right.
Freelance.
You do have that right. That's part of it. They're ending the exploitative types, but still leaving...
Exploitative types.
Well, yeah, the kids that are on zero-hour contracts in the back of restaurants and cafes like that. But there is still the option that if you wish to have a zero-hour contract, it's based on the worker preference. So you do have that option.
It's another example of Starmer's muddled politics. He said growth is his #1 priority, and there has never been an example in human history where growth has come from tightening up the labour market.
Yeah, just wrapping businesses in more regulation.
Just very briefly, last word.
So you think that fire and rehire and lack of statutory sick pay will...
Yeah, they just did that to Sue. Poor Sue, poor Sue.
I think she was technically within her probation period, which of course this legislation protects.
Here we are.
Mic drop from
Renee. Loads more to come. I said that earlier on my show, thank you very much. Loads more to come on the show tonight, including criminal barrister and former Tory MP Jerry Hayes. He's going to give us he's going to blast Jerry generic? Oh, God.
Generic.
All of that and more to
Generic,
come
generic.
after this weather. See you then.
A chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. We've got plenty of fine weather in store across the UK over the next day or so, but as we head into the new working week, things will turn more unsettled. We'll see some rain developing at times, but all the while, those temperatures starting to climb as well. At the moment, low pressure is moving off the scene out into the North Sea. That's allowing a ridge of high pressure to build in from the west, so things starting to quieten down, but a bit of a chilly northerly breeze developing as well. And certainly as we go into the overnight period, we'll hold on to quite a few showers in that northerly airstream across the north and northeast of the UK. Some wintry showers across the high ground in Scotland, but things will start to quieten down from the west as that ridge of high pressure builds in. Lots of clear weather developing, and certainly by the morning on Sunday, a touch of frost forming, particularly across the north of the UK where temperatures will dip below freezing. As for Sunday itself, then we'll get off to a pretty showery start again, once up towards the north and northeast of Scotland. Again, a few of those showers a little bit on the wintry side across the mountains. Quite a keen northwesterly breeze still blowing here too. Further south across southwest Scotland into Northern Ireland and the north of England, mostly fine. Plenty of sunshine, although some high clouds starting to come in across Northern Ireland, turning that sunshine a little bit hazy. Quite hazy the sunshine too across parts of Wales and southwest England. So the best of the sunshine to start the day generally the further east you go. And we hold on to quite a bit of sunshine across many eastern parts of the UK through the day on Sunday. The showers in the far northeast tend to fade away. That brisk wind also easing through the day. But notice out towards the west, clouds starting to come in from the west there. And we'll start to see some patchy rain developing across parts of Northern Ireland and the west of Scotland by the very end of the day on Sunday. A chilly day up and down the country, highs no better than 7 to 9 Celsius in the north, perhaps up to 11 or 12 at best towards the south and southwest. As for Monday, well, a very unsettled day developing across the south of the UK. Cloudy skies, outbreaks of rain, especially during the morning. Rain towards the northwest starting to ease. All in all, things improving into the afternoon, the rain in the south easing, skies starting to brighten elsewhere. Things though turning generally unsettled into the coming week. Rain at times, but notice those temperatures also on the climb up to the high teens in Celsius.
We can expect clear skies, leading to a light and warm day ahead. Lovely. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
There's only good luck. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Quite a few actors on this programme on a Friday night, and I always ask them the same question. Was you a nuisance at school?
I was quite naughty, yeah. I got the slipper in front of the whole school at the age of 6.
Really?
It was quite humiliating. And I got the cane as well a bit later on, yeah.
But it didn't do me any harm, did it, really?
No, do you know what? I think, you know, the schools these days, things have changed a lot, haven't they? And you've got your kids assaulting teachers and stuff.
Well, we're not advocating really violence at all.
Not at all. And well, but I think, you know, my mother used to be quite strict with me as a boy, but I probably needed it. You know, I did things like, I watched a Western once and I saw these the Indians firing blazing arrows into the cowboy's truck or whatever, in the cabin. So I thought, I'll have a go at that. And I had a bow and arrow with some petrol in the garage. I found a rag and fired this flaming arrow into the next door neighbour's fence.
So you're an arsonist as well?
Yeah. Box of matches, absolutely. What excitement. And my mother ran out of the kitchen with a bowl of washing up water, threw it over the fence. What on earth are you doing?
Do not try this at home, by the way.
No.
So, what got you into acting, John?
Well, I went to the cinema every week because we didn't have a TV. Yeah. So I really got into watching these movies. And I used to come out and then I'd go to Saturday morning pictures as well. And I'd come out of the movie and I'd feel like Paul Newman for about an hour. Yeah. Or I'd pretend to be with my friends when we were younger. Yeah. We'd go playing games along the beach in North Kent. Herne Bay. And so that's how I got the taste of it, I guess. Then I joined an amateur dramatic society, local theatre group. I did Oliver, and I played Noah Claypole, who locks Oliver in the coffin. In Oliver.
Did you have a dog?
Yes, an untrained pit bull. And I got up onto the stage. I tied him to the table in the tavern. He did across the stage with the table. And on another occasion, he lifted his leg against the table as well. So
GB News, the People's Channel.
It's Saturday night and this is the Saturday 5. I'm Darren Grimes, along with Will Kingston, Renee Houndekamp, Emma Webb and Andy Twelves. We've got plenty more to come tonight, including the former Tory MP Jerry Hayes on the Conservative leadership election, and believe me, he ain't gonna hold back. And the Saturday scrap on Boris Johnson's Brexit comments. It's 7 p.m, my friends, and this is the Saturday 5. And of course, still to come tonight, we'll answer all of your questions in Ask the Five, so do get them in to gbnews.com/your say. Plus, we're going to cover everything from fruit and veg in the chippy, apparently it's going to be mandated, to Sir Keir Starmer's choice of portraits in Downing Street. I'm surprised he's not put himself up yet. Then we'll be answering your questions in... Oh, Lord Ali. Then we'll be answering your questions in Ask the Five. Send them through. No, I've already said that bit. First of all, though, it's your Saturday night news.
Darren, thank you and good evening. It's just gone 7 o'clock. These are the latest headlines. The former First Minister of Scotland, Alex Salmond, regarded by many as the titan of Scottish politics, has died at the age of 69. He was giving a speech in North Macedonia this morning, and it's understood he died at some point after the event. Salmond was First Minister between 2007 and 2014, leading the SNP to historic victories, including a majority in the 2011 Scottish Parliament election. He was also instrumental in the 2014 independence referendum, a campaign that ultimately ended in defeat. Following that defeat, Salmond announced his resignation as First Minister and SNP leader. His deputy, Nicola Sturgeon, succeeded him in both of those roles. Tributes are being paid across the political landscape this evening to Salmond, and a short while ago, Scotland's First Minister and the leader of the SNP, John Swinney, has said that he is deeply shocked and saddened at the untimely death of the former First Minister, adding that Alex made an enormous contribution to political life, where he worked tirelessly and fought fearlessly for the country that he loved and for her independence. The leader of the Scottish Conservatives, Russell Finlay, has also just released a statement saying Salmond will be remembered as a formidable and impressive politician who made a lasting impact on our country. Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer has said Alex Salmond was a monumental figure of Scottish and UK politics. He leaves behind a lasting legacy. He cared deeply about Scotland's heritage, history and culture. And the Prime Minister added, on behalf of the UK government, he offers condolences to all those who knew Salmond, his family and his loved ones. Scottish Labour leader Anna Sawar has also paid tribute to Salmond, describing him as a central figure in politics for over 3 decades. Alex Salmond, who has died today. 100 days in, and Sir Keir Starmer admits it hasn't been smooth sailing. In a video posted on social media, the Prime Minister has been reflecting on Labour's landslide win in July, but acknowledged the choppy days since taking office. When asked if he thought his start had been successful, his spokesman said it's up to the public to decide.
Today marks 100 days of my Labour government. Before that, 14 years of Tory failure. 14 years is a long time to cause damage. 100 days isn't much time to fix it. I will level with you. The scale of the damage is huge, but I will take the tough decisions to fix the foundations of our country, to deliver the long-term change we need, the change that you voted for. The next 100 days starts now, and I won't waste a moment.
Prime Minister. And finally, for now, GB News can reveal that an average of 135 migrants have crossed the English Channel in small boats each day since Prime Minister Keir Starmer took office. Over 13,500 have arrived since the 5th of July. Today alone, more than 400 migrants made the perilous journey from France, pushing the total for the year to nearly 27,200. A Home Office spokesman insists they're committed to dismantling people smuggling operations, saying the government will stop at nothing to bring these criminals to justice. A reminder of that breaking news this evening. Former First Minister of Scotland, Alex Salmond, has died at the age of 69. We will bring you more on that as we get it. Those are the latest news headlines for now. I'm Katie Bowen. I'll be back with you in an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Cheers very much, Katie. It's Saturday night and you're with the Saturday 5. I'm Darren Grimes and I can promise that you're in for a very lively hour. We're going to crack on with tonight's big interview. Now, a reminder there that Alex Salmond has passed away at the age of 69. But now I want to ask my guest about that, actually, because I think they were in Parliament at the same time in the 80s, but he will put me right if I'm wrong. Now, the next leader of the Conservative Party will either be Kemi Badenoch or Robert Jenrick, as Tory members continue to vote in an online ballot going out, I believe, next week. James Cleverly was eliminated in the last round of voting. Now, despite leading the previous round with reports of tactical voting having gone spectacularly wrong. Well, the competition has heated up. You can watch Robert Jenrick and Kemi Badenoch battle it out in a special live event exclusively here on GB News on Thursday evening at 7 p.m. But who's more likely to win and what do each of the two candidates really offer? To discuss this, I'm joined by the former Tory MP and barrister Jerry Hayes, who has written, well, a scathing article on one of the candidates in particular. Welcome to the show, Jerry. Now, Jerry, can I first of all ask you that question about Alex Salmond? You were in Parliament at the same time, if my maths is correct.
I was elected in 1983. And before Alex was elected, actually, I knew him very well. In those days, the SNP were a bit of a joke. They just had not even a handful of members. They had something like 3 members. And he turned them into a proper political, credible force, which they hadn't been done before. They were just a joke. So a giant, he's gone, and it's the end of the SNP anyway.
Yeah, you think so? Do you think actually his dream is never going to, you know, in our lifetimes come into fruition of independence, I mean?
I can't see it.
He put it on the radar, didn't he? It came close.
Yeah. And then suddenly he left, started his own party, I think it's Alba.
Yeah.
And then the whole party of SNP under Sturgeon just exploded and it's dead. And one of the reasons Labour got such a large majority was because of the collapse of the SNP.
Indeed. All right, Jerry, thank you for that. We'll move on then to talking about the leadership election. Now, you were pretty scathing in your assessment of Robert Jenrick. I mean, he was a former Remain campaigner. He backed David Cameron once upon a time, and now he's come out and he's a sort of, what would you call him, Farage light, maybe?
A pound shop Farage.
Is that what you called him, Jerry?
Yeah.
Not my words, I promise, not my words.
Your words. But you see, thing about Nigel. Nigel's a friend. We disagree on a lot of things, but he believes. He actually believes in what he says. He does care about the dispossessed in places like Ashfield and Clacton, and they believe in him. The trouble with politics nowadays, and the reason politicians are so despised, is most of them don't believe in anything at all. I mean, Jenrick is just one of these shape-shifting politicians. One day he's a Cameroon pro-Remain, gets up and says it's be terrible if we leave the EU, and then suddenly it all changes. Well, and he said today, I'm going to if I become Prime Minister, I'm going to get rid of a million immigrants. Oh, please. Now, the thing about Kemi, she's authentic. Now, I'm on the left of the Conservative.
Well, I was about to say, are you just saying this, Jerry, because I know. I was about to say, you're wetter than an otter's pocket, Jerry. Is that why you're saying this?
No, it's just, I want the Conservative Party to win power. I want them to come back. The Conservative Party used to be the most expert political machine in the world, and we were actually getting into power more than Labour ever did. Now we're regarded as a joke. Now we're regarded as completely and utterly weird. And you don't, well, I'm going to say you don't get much weirder than Jenrick. It's not true. There's quite a few weirder people than him. But they don't want shapeshifters. Now, the thing about Kemi is that she is authentic. She really is.
Yeah, we've got one vote for Kemi there then, Jerry, I'm guessing, by what you're saying. Does anyone disagree with Jerry about the authenticity of Robert Jenrick?
I don't disagree, but I do have a sort of a question to put to you as to whether, you know, it could be possible that, and I agree with you, I think Kemi has natural authority, she has stuck to her guns the whole way through. And you do have to ask why Jenrick didn't say sooner that he wanted to deport all of the illegal migrants when he had the opportunity. I think he could have done a lot more than just simply resign from his position if he wanted to object to the government's policy on migration. But is it not possible that actually he has shown some integrity and perhaps has actually just changed his mind on the basis of new facts being presented to him, that actually maybe he has come to believe the things that he's saying? Is that not a possibility?
Oh, it's a possibility, and I suppose it's a possibility. Well, no, I was going to be slightly rude, actually. It can't, because we haven't got to the watershed.
No, we have not, Jerry. Careful.
No, but the fact is, no. I mean, his attack dogs on Kemi. Anyone who's in the press knows that Jenrick's attack dogs have been behaving in a disgraceful way. And he comes on TV and just says, oh, no, it's not me. I wouldn't dream of doing it. But he doesn't stop them.
I have heard from Kemi's campaign that it's been a horrible campaigin, that, you know, the briefings, yeah.
Briefings against her have been utterly disgusting.
Dr. Renee.
Yeah, I think, I mean, it's appalling. She is a good woman. Now, I know her quite well. She's my MP. And she's got a humorous side to her. She's got a very earthy sense of humour.
Yeah.
And she really is a warm person. And one of the things I've been saying to her, for God's sake, be yourself on the telly. Everyone thinks you're just going across the road to have a fight with somebody, but you're not. But she'll be good in opposition. She'd be good in government. She's not Margaret Thatcher. Margaret Thatcher was pretty useless in opposition. She wasn't a good opposition leader. She came to fruition when she took power. Kemi is the sort of person that can, whether you can unite the Conservative Party, I haven't got a clue. But she gives us a fighting chance of winning the next election, a fighting chance.
So, Jerry, I mean, everything you say, I think, sounds quite reasonable. But do you think that these attack dogs that Jenrick has put out on Kemi and the rumours in the press, do you think they're going to have any effect at all on the members' voting decisions?
I hope not. I hope the average Conservative member has got more nous than to believe some of this stuff. And it's all getting a bit hysterical as well. There's a million immigrants. You were saying the other day, a moment ago, that, you know, he was the immigration minister and he was with Suella. I mean, you know, she's not a dripping wet.
Well, no.
He was with Priti Patel, and she's not a dripping wet. So he had, and they had the opportunity to do it.
Well, Jerry, what do you say, though? Do you think, what do you say to this theory that actually his experience in the Home Office is what, I guess you could say, radicalised him to the right, because he has seen how ineffectual it is, and everything that we've just heard in the last hour of the show about the madness with Britain's asylum and immigration system leading to a massive, well, unsafety within the actual country itself. Perhaps that's why he's had this conversion into being a figure of the right.
Or perhaps he's just horribly and ruthlessly ambitious and will say anything to get the job. I mean...
Oh, you old cynic.
I've been in politics a very, very long time. I couldn't understand why there was a gasp when Cleverly was thrown under a bus. I mean, when you've got that little man, what's his name, Grant Shapps, doing the books, I mean, you know there's going to be trouble.
Well, I mean, you know, one thing to note here is Kemi barely even won her parliamentary seat in North West Essex. I mean,
West Streeting.
Well, West Streeting isn't running to be leader of the opposition.
He will.
But the thing is, with Kemi, she had a 21-year-old girl from North London who didn't campaign for the last week of the campaign against her, and she only won by 1,500 votes. Like, yeah, but I don't think the people of North West Essex are really that behind her. If a 21-year-old parachute candidate from North London who didn't even campaign came very, very close to beating her.
But it doesn't work like that. Kemi didn't let down the Conservative Party. The Conservative Party let down Kemi.
Well, she is the Conservative. She was a cabinet minister under the last Conservative government. She is the letdown of the Conservative Party.
You honestly, maybe you do. You don't honestly believe that people just go out there and vote for their member of parliament if they're popular. Once it's a swing, you.
Well, the point is, Jerry, she was the business secretary under the Conservative Party. She is the Conservative Party. She was part of the national failure. You could make that argument if she was an irrelevant backbencher during the last 14 years, but she was the business secretary.
He was a business secretary, and look what's happened to business. Look at Keir Starmer, who's saying, look at all the investment that's happened in the last 2 months. It didn't happen in the last 2 months. It happened on her watch. She was the business and trade secretary. She negotiated those deals.
All right. Will, have you got any? Very briefly.
Who would Labor want to see least as the leader of the Conservative Party?
There will be lots of false flags. I expect fairly soon we'll have a little interview with Peter Mandelson, who has a cloven hoof in every camp on these sorts of things. And he will say, you know, we're very worried about Generic, you know. We're very worried, but I can't say that. I don't interfere.
Yes.
They are scared. They are scared of Kemi.
Are you suggesting Peter Mandelson is a bit of a Machiavellian character?
I would have thought.
Oh, good heavens, what a wicked thing to say.
Well, I think in fairness, Jerry would be
in his waterboarding weekend programme.
Yeah, well, I think Jerry would be sour against Peter Mandelson, considering the fact Mandelson ran the campaign that meant Jerry lost his seat. So I imagine there is a bit of tension there.
Oh.
No, there's no tension. Peter's a friend.
Yeah.
Good heavens, no tension. No tension at all between me and Peter.
Of course, that's why you've got to say it.
Ah, well. All right, Jerry, we'll leave that there. Thank you very much.
About politics, do you?
Well,
I mean, I'm not the one that lost the election.
Hey, he was an MP for how many years?
I was an MP for 14 years.
14 years.
And then you lost.
What's a cloven hoof between friends?
What's a cloven hoof?
You were an MP 40 years ago.
Never have won in the first place.
Yeah, all right. Right, we'll leave that there. Thank you very much, Jerry, for coming on. I do appreciate your time and your insight there. Still to come tonight, we'll rattle through the week's top stories in Bunch of Five. From fish and chip shops being forced to sell fruit and veg, to Sir Keir Starmer removing another portrait from Downing Street. He's putting one up of Lord Ali instead. But next, it's time for the Saturday Scrap, and Boris Johnson has been grilled once again about his work on Brexit, with some calling him a liar. Is he? I don't think he is. You're with the Saturday 5 live on GB News.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
You know, is the fact that electric blanket sales going up actually a good thing? This means that people are switched on to the problems that the winter might hold, that they might have some defence against it, or is it a real indictment of a Labour government that they aren't going to be able to, you know, support elderly people in their hour of need?
Good morning, by the way.
Morning.
I think the sale of electric blankets may well be because we've had this cold snap because of the Arctic weather coming in from the north. However, I think it's an absolute reality that, as your clip said, that over 800,000 elderly people who are eligible for the winter fuel allowance, who can get pension credits, are struggling to apply. And so what is absolutely essential at the moment is that all of those older people who are eligible for pension credits do apply and do get what's owed to them. The benefits are owed to them. And the average that people will get through pension credits is about £78 a week. So that's definitely going to make a massive difference to people who are really struggling.
What can organisations like yours do to encourage people to, I guess, educate themselves on technology and make that first step into the digital world, which is very intimidating at times?
Absolutely, and that's what we do at Good Things Foundation. So we're a national charity. We work all across the whole of the UK. And in your clip there, you had Links Digital, and they're a member of what we call the National Digital Inclusion Network, which is a network of local charities, small local community organisations, food banks, job centres, old people's clubs. So anyone, any organisation at that local level.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about?
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. Now, there is that news in that Alex Salmond has passed away at the age of 69, with tributes coming in across the political spectrum for a politician that was considered a beast and a tartan titan, you could say. And there'll be more coming in on that news later in the show. Now, though, it is time for this. Indeed, I've just popped on my gloves there, ready for the boxing ring. It's time for our main event. Former Prime Minister Boris Johnson was grilled on BBC Radio 5 Live this week. I've never heard of it either. But one particular accusation was cropped up that Boris was a liar, particularly over figures brandished on the side of the Brexit bus, the Vote Leave bus, which he used to spearhead the campaign in 2016. Let's have a little listen.
The net figure that the UK was sending to Brussels to be spent by the EU on projects in the EU. That the rest was to be spent by the EU on projects in the UK with no control from the UK, right?
Yeah.
So that was why.
I tell you what, let's not get too bogged down.
Come on,
Okay.
come on. You see, that's the problem. You accuse me of being a liar. You accuse me of being a liar, and then when I actually come back with the truth, you don't want to hear it.
Well, I say good for him. Yeah. What do you at home make of Boris's Brexit comments and the actual argument that the MSM don't give him a fair hearing? Well, seconds out, it's round one. I'm going to let the communists take us away.
I'm not a communist. I'd say more neo-Marx. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm a democratic socialist. I think, you know, the point about Boris Johnson being a liar, I think that's fairly undisputable. I mean, even going back to when he was a Brussels correspondent at the Telegraph, I think it was, he got fired for lying to his editor about a quote. He'd misattributed a quote from his godfather and lied about it to his editor, so he got sacked. He got sacked from the shadow cabinet under, I can't remember who it was, William Hague or someone like that, when he was the shadow arts minister, for lying about an affair that he was having with another woman whilst married. He lied about Chris Pincher and knowledge of the allegations against him. He lied about Turkey joining the EU. He lied about crime reduction rates when he was mayor. He lied, of course, well, you know, the Brexit bus, we'll leave that at the moment. But these are...
because you know that was true.
Well, yeah, just ignore the other 4 or 5 examples that I've named just off the top of my head.
About his sex life, to be perfectly
honest. Well, no, but the fact is he lied about it. The fact is he lied about it to his party leader. He lied to his editor. You know, he's consistently proven over the last 40 years that he is a liar.
Right, well, I mean, on the point about Turkey joining the EU, you know they are part of the customs union.
Have they joined the EU?
Which is a general...
have they joined the EU?
That's the track that you go on. No, they haven't yet, because this came after 2016. They ended up going a really radical Islamic path in which they're becoming more like Iran than they are the kind of Turkey that was wanting to join the EU as a member state. But they joined the customs union. They became part of the trading pact that the European Union is part of. So in economic terms, they are part at least partially, members of the European Union.
Well, it wasn't the economic part. It wasn't the economic part he was arguing about. It was about migration rates primarily,
it was the political part, and that was meant to happen. But I mean,
it didn't.
So would you still, as a supporter of the European Union, would you still like Turkey to join under Erdogan?
I didn't support the European Union.
Yeah, well, I mean, to be...
I didn't.
You're making a pretty good case.
Well, no, I'm just saying he lied. I'm just saying he lied. I didn't support the EU.
Did we or do we not send more than £350 million every single week to the EU?
Well, no, we don't. We don't, because we're not members of the EU.
We did.
Well, you didn't
just
say...
accused him of being a liar.
Well, no, I didn't say... Well, he is a liar. You look at Chris Pincher. The crime reduction rates when he was mayor.
About that. He just defended
He said he had no knowledge of it when he did, when he had been briefed,
do you know what?
clearly.
Do you know what gets me? Is that Boris was absolutely right in saying that the established media, whenever there is pushback, they don't like the narrative because it doesn't suit their worldview. So the EU, like the Britain Stronger in Europe campaign, they said ad nauseum that actually there would be a DIY recession, that this country would become an economic basket
I'm not
case,
saying that they didn't lie.
That there would be...
I'm not saying they didn't lie, Darren.
Make that point, because that's what Boris was... No, it's not irrelevant. That's what Boris was told.
The point is he is a liar.
On Radio 5
The two are not mutually exclusive, Darren. The Britain Stronger in Europe campaign can be liars as well as Boris Johnson.
1 million job losses, that actually we would not have a trading relationship with the EU. All of it turned out to be total lies. We've gone gangbusters since then.
The two aren't mutually exclusive, Darren. He was lying before the Britain Stronger in Europe campaign, and he's been lying after.
The question was whether or not Boris
he's a liar.
Johnson was able to actually articulate a view that says that the other side of the campaign told way more lies than the Brexit side of the argument. And I would argue that they absolutely did.
Boris Johnson the question was, is Boris Johnson a liar?
Been given a fair hearing by people like yourself, because you smear and you go for things with his personal life.
Well, no, it's when he's lied and been fired.
You do not go over the issues of politics, which is what he was trying to do there, and he was routinely shut down, which is what you're trying to do now with these complete non sequiturs. We're talking about...
that he lied about crime reduction rates when he was mayor?
Did he lie about Brexit? That was the actual...
Well, no, it wasn't. It was, is Boris a liar?
Yes,
that was what I was briefed.
On Brexit. Well, I mean, the video itself was on the EU, so, I mean...
Well, no, it wasn't. It actually...
inferred that we're talking about the EU.
In fairness, if you actually look 20 seconds before that video clip, it was the general common denominator from the text and messages was that he was a liar.
Yes,
it wasn't just about Brexit.
Talk about Brexit.
I mean, he lies about...
So was he a liar about Brexit?
I am sure that he lied about some things about Brexit. I am
like
sure.
What?
I don't know. I didn't pay attention to the campaign that much.
So you're just going to accuse him of being a liar without any actual...
Well, no, I'm going to talk about when he lied about not meeting with Super League, football Super League representatives. You can't go, here you go, and then when I give you examples, you know, it doesn't quite make sense, Darren.
You haven't answered actually how he lied about Brexit.
Well, you said, has he lied? That was the question. Has he lied? Yes, he lies consistently. He lied when he was a junior reporter at the Telegraph. He lied when he was a shadow minister. He lied when he was London mayor. He lied when he was foreign secretary. He lied when he was prime minister. And he's probably lying in whatever he does now.
Has Sir Keir Starmer ever told a lie?
Yes, I'm sure he has.
Yeah.
Well, that's not a particularly deep or meaningful comment. You know, you can like a kind of Zen monk. But it doesn't mean much, Darren.
I think
Boris Johnson is a liar.
He lied about the winter fuel allowance. He lied about Brexit. He says he's a supporter.
What did he lie about Brexit?
The architect of the second referendum campaign. Lied about his clothes. The man is a total charlatan.
I don't want to be a cynic, but what politician hasn't lied? And even outside of politics,
well, you know,
he without sin cast the first stone.
Darren,
who really cares?
Of course, he's a liar.
Thank
but
you.
I've got a theory of politics that there are good liars and there are bad liars, and the good liars are the ones that at least do it with a bit of a wink and a bit of brio. It's the sort of kind of negative, boring, sad, tragic lying that we get from Starmer, which I really don't like. If you're going to lie to me, at least do it with a bit of a wink and a bit of charm.
I think he has a point.
Well, I think lying is lying.
So should politicians never lie?
Oh, I don't think they should, no.
Okay. So
I don't think anyone would go, yes, I would love my politicians to lie to me.
The whole front bench thing.
Well, no, I don't think it's... I think there's a difference between thinking that politicians shouldn't lie and it being a resigning matter.
I think Sir Keir Starmer has lied in the last 3 months more than Boris Johnson has lied in his entire career.
That is...
I would genuinely,
insane hyperbole.
I would genuinely like to know, on GB News /Your Say, I genuinely want to know whether anybody out there actually cares which politicians have lied and which haven't, because we all know that they've all lied.
Well, I think they threw the Tories out because they had been lied to, as in...
And who was one of the leading prime ministers of the Tory party?
Who cares? People have spoken at the ballot box. Who really, at this point, cares whether he's a liar or not, except for BBC 5 Live?
And Andy.
Well, I was asked. Well, Darren started it, I think, in fairness.
You both make very weak arguments.
There we are. Now, still ahead, keep your questions coming in for later in the show, because we'll be getting to Ask the Five momentarily. But after this, it'll be time for Bunch of Five, where we cover everything from fruit and veg in a fish and chip shop, mandatory by the way, to another reshuffle of the portraits in Downing Street. I wonder what's going up instead. Probably one of Andy. You're with the Saturday Five live on GB News.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. We've got plenty of fine weather in store across the UK over the next day or so, but as we head into the new working week, things will turn more unsettled. We'll see some rain developing at times, but all the while, those temperatures starting to climb as well. At the moment, low pressure is moving off the scene out into the North Sea. That's allowing a ridge of high pressure to build in from the west, so things starting to quieten down, but a bit of a chilly northerly breeze developing as well. And certainly as we go into the overnight period, we'll hold on to quite a few showers in that northerly airstream across the north and northeast of the UK. Some wintry showers across the high ground in Scotland, but things will start to quieten down from the west as that ridge of high pressure builds in. Lots of clear weather developing, and certainly by the morning on Sunday, a touch of frost forming, particularly across the north of the UK where temperatures will dip below freezing. As for Sunday itself, then we'll get off to a pretty showery start again, once up towards the north and northeast of Scotland. Again, a few of those showers a little bit on the wintry side across the mountains. Quite a keen northwesterly breeze still blowing here too. Further south across southwest Scotland into Northern Ireland and the north of England, mostly fine. Plenty of sunshine, although some high clouds starting to come in across Northern Ireland, turning that sunshine a little bit hazy. Quite hazy the sunshine too across parts of Wales and southwest England. So the best of the sunshine to start the day generally the further east you go. And we hold on to quite a bit of sunshine across many eastern parts of the UK through the day on Sunday. The showers in the far northeast tend to fade away. That brisk wind also easing through the day. But notice out towards the west, clouds starting to come in from the west there. And we'll start to see some patchy rain developing across parts of Northern Ireland and the west of Scotland by the very end of the day on Sunday. A chilly day up and down the country, highs no better than 7 to 9 Celsius in the north, perhaps up to 11 or 12 at best towards the south and southwest. As for Monday, well, a very unsettled day developing across the south of the UK. Cloudy skies, outbreaks of rain, especially during the morning. Rain towards the northwest starting to ease. All in all, things improving into the afternoon. The rain in the south easing, skies starting to brighten elsewhere. Things though turning generally unsettled into the coming week. Rain at times, but notice those temperatures also on the climb up to the high teens in Celsius.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment. This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory. Don't miss my big opinion. Mark meets and my take at 10. Democracy is a funny old thing. And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it. Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it. That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
A very warm welcome back to the Saturday Five. We've just had Alex Salmond on the blower, I nearly said there. Boris Johnson on the blower. And he says he's got some words for Andy, so we'll get to them later on. Oh. Now, Alex Salmond has, of course, passed away at the age of 69. There have been tributes across the political spectrum, and when we get to the news bulletin, we'll get to some of those. Now, though, it's time for this. All right, Free Willy, what have you got?
Bit of nanny state nonsense for you, Darren. So, in some respects, this is a story about a humble proposed fish and chip shop, but I think it's also an insight into so much of what is wrong with modern Britain. In short, someone wants to open a chippy in North Wales, and pretty much everyone on a public salary is trying to stop them from doing so. So we've had local NHS bosses come in and say that they're worried about obesity in the small holiday town, and so the chippy has to serve a good selection of fruit and vegetables to go along with their fish and chips menu. The council has jumped in now because they're worried that there are too many small businesses in that local area. We don't want that economy growing too much. This axis of evil that we're seeing between local councils who never want to build anything because it slightly inconveniences them, and local health officials who think they know how to run your life better than you do, are a really good indicator of why this country is not growing. It's a disgrace.
Yeah, I do. I mean, what do you think? You're a doctor.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is silly. I think we should nudge people towards healthy choices. Of course we should. But that doesn't mean that a fish and chip shop should sell fruit and veg. I mean, as I said to you earlier, they sell gherkins. That probably counts.
Well, you remember the whole metric martyrs thing? There were people who came up with really inventive ways of getting around it. They did things like having a club where people would do a subscription and then they were exempt from the rules and stuff like that. I think that they should do this, but they should pickle all the vegetables as a way of getting around it, sticking two fingers up to the local council. Because, I mean, funny stuff aside, this is just suffocating. Like Darren said earlier, I was recently in America, and you could breathe the freedom in. I know that America is going south somewhat, but it felt like a freer place, and it made me realise just how suffocating all of the restrictions and regulations feel here in the UK.
I'm afraid that all stems from the NHS, you know. I think the NHS is the root of us all being... Because we don't live for ourselves, we live to protect the NHS.
Is Tony Blair behind this? I think actually on the kind of pickle, I think you should take from Scotland and batter all of the vegetables and the fruit.
I think they're healthy when they're pickled, though, aren't they? If you batter them,
they're not really. If you eat too many, esophageal cancer.
Oh. God. All right, what have you got?
OK,
See, I told you, the NHS.
So we're in October, and on the 10th day of the 10th month, we're denoted by the Roman numerals XX. And for those of you who did biology at school, most of us, we all know that XX is the only way that a fetus is a woman, is defined as a woman. It's not a sign. It's caused at conception. So this month, on the 10th day, XXXY Athletics decided to put out a video to Nike from some young girls, and I just want you to show it. That's all I need to say to see it.
Dear Nike.
Dear Nike.
Dear Nike.
Why won't you stand up for me? Why won't you stand up for me? Why won't you?
Why do you claim to support women and girls?
Yet when we need you most, you remain silent.
Powerful.
It brought a tear to my eye when I watched it.
I just got goosebumps again for the second time. I've watched it twice today, and both times I got goosebumps because it's just seeing the faces of the little girls. It's the face of the people that this is really affecting.
Who are being erased from sport.
And it shows Nike up, because if they ignore it...
Andy, are those little girls bigots? Is that what you're about to say?
No, I wasn't going to say anything. I think it's a pretty...
If you can't say anything nice, don't say anything.
Well, no. So
poor Jerry Hayes got the boot of that, didn't he?
Well, I mean, you know, Jerry Hayes... we won't start again on Jerry Hayes.
I can hear Andy's cloven hooves.
Exactly.
Do you think Nike will respond to that?
I doubt it.
They actually came out with a campaign recently for the women's American basketball team, which was the whole pro-woke thing. These so ingrained in these companies that despite the fact that these don't have a positive economic impact, they keep doing it and they keep doing it.
But they did the whole thing where they introduced hijabs to encourage Muslim women into sports. So they do care about some women,
but not those
going into
girls.
Yeah. It's really depressing, actually, and a sign of, you know, that's why these big businesses boycott the likes of us, because we speak common sense. Yep. Now, right, I want to talk to you about Hendon Golf Club. Now, Hendon is a part of London with a large Jewish population, and I was sent some really shocking images and video content, and I appreciate being sent it, but I genuinely was completely flabbergasted by it. Now, I warn to viewers that there is some distressing images here with offensive content and slogans, and turn off now, basically, if you don't want to see it. But just to be clear to radio listeners, there was on this golf course the likes of Heil Hitler inscribed within the sand. There was F the Jews inscribed within the sand, and swastikas inscribed within the sand. Now, in a statement, the golf club said this. They said, In the early hours of Friday, 11th of October 2024, Hendon Golf Club was the victim of race-related vandalism. Anti-Semitic wording and symbols were drawn in a number of the bunkers. These have now been removed, the Police and Community Security Trust have been informed, and the matter is now in their hands. Now, my problem with this, folks, at home, is that this would never, had I not been sent this would not have received any attention whatsoever, despite the fact that this person had tried to get it out there. If this had happened and it was slogans that were against Islamophobic in any way, this would have got coverage. I think when it comes to the Jews, there is a unique, we will turn away from this and pretend it ain't happening. And I think that that is a real problem. Christianity, it would get coverage, but it would get coverage in a ha-ha, he-he. Isn't that hilarious? But when it comes to the Jews, we simply ignore it and put our fingers in our ears and turn our eyes away. And I think that that is a crying shame, and that's what I take away from this story.
Yeah, I live in this part of the world, and I live amongst these communities, so I know how sensitive that will be. Essentially, there is no other way to describe this other than anti-Semitism is the acceptable racism.
Yeah.
It's important to say as well, I mean, you alluded to it there, but this is a very, very Jewish area, and the police even take things more seriously, it seems, when hate crimes or whatever are committed outside of any other religious establishment like a mosque or and I do feel like I am seeing more overt, straightforward, old-fashioned fascist anti-Semitism. And I don't think it's any surprise that this is coming right after the anniversary of the 7th of October.
And also, it's Yom Kippur. Their holiest of
and
days.
Rosh Hashanah. It's in between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. So whoever has come here, and I hope that they've managed to catch them on CCTV, and if they have, that they do something about it. But whoever has done this must be somebody who's in the know and is trying to wound the community there.
Imagine being a Jewish golfer. You go to that club and that's what you see. It must be absolutely awful. But, you make a good point, because there was a lad banged up for flying the cross of St George.
Too close to a mosque.
Yeah. And I mean, I just think it's a
I mean, just say that again. Somebody's been jailed for flying.
A young lad, he was only 18, 19, something to that effect, and I just think the whole country's got this all wrong. But I'm grateful to GB News for allowing me to cover that, and that is genuinely why I love working here.
Probably not anywhere else.
No, it won't be, Emma, it won't be. And I thank the person that sent me it as well. Anyway, Emma, what have you got for us?
Oh, well, some people will remember that that Keir Starmer removed the portrait of Margaret Thatcher from Downing Street. Well, now he's removed another one. This time he's removed the Liberal Prime Minister William Gladstone. And Gladstone came into the spotlight during all of the BLM hubbub for his family's links to slavery. So his father owned some slaves. He himself never owned slaves. He was actually vehemently anti-slavery. As I've actually got a quote here from him. He described slavery as by far the foulest crime that taints the history of mankind. And we were talking earlier in relation to Alex Salmond about the sort of calibre of politicians. Well, to see somebody who is a mediocrity like Keir Starmer removing the portrait of someone like William Gladstone, who was Prime Minister 4 times and is one of the real true titans of British politics, and himself a Liberal. He was called the People's William. That was his nickname. He co-founded a society for the extinction of slavery. And it seems that he's decided to remove this portrait. And I presume that it's because he's one of those who's been put on the naughty step by the BLM campaigners.
Yeah, I would say that too. And it's Black History Month as well, so I assume that has some semblance of... They had a party, maybe someone at the party said, oh, why have you got that picture of that fascist or something?
Be careful, you might end up with it being like the one of Balfour at Trinity, and maybe somebody at number 10 might slash the portrait.
I guarantee if you asked any of these people supporting all of this, they would know none of that history that you've just given us, Emma.
But what this lightweight fails to understand is the Prime Ministership isn't about him. He is the representative of an institution that goes back hundreds and hundreds of years, and his attempts just to whitewash or change history in the way that he wants it goes against his role in that institution.
I think you should stop being so harsh. Andy, he has a perfect right to put up a picture of Lord Ali.
Well, I mean, he does, and, I'm sure a freedom lover like yourself would believe in that right. But, I mean, this is a bit of a non-story. It's not like Rachel Reeves.
It's not a
It's in his office. He can do what he wants. Prime ministers regularly have artwork coming in and out.
They've never taken down the Gladstone picture. I mean, he was a statesman. He was one of our greatest prime ministers.
I'm sure that there are lots of other photos and paintings and portraits of Thatcher and Gladstone in the rest of Whitehall and in the rest of number 10 and number 11.
You don't think Thatcher should have been in the Thatcher room?
The Thatcher room was named after the roof more so, wasn't it? They had a thatched roof on it. That was the real...
They did do an audit of all of the artwork and paintings in Parliament.
Yeah.
Gladstone was one of those who was put on the list.
It just indicates this pettiness and smallness that is so demonstrative of the man.
And it's also because, by comparison to William Gladstone, Keir Starmer is basically Eagle-Piggle.
Oh, he's a parliamentary pygmy. Parliamentary pygmy, that's what he is.
He's a complete mediocrity, and that's why it's so astonishing.
What have I got for this? So I took this from the Guido Fawkes website, which is uncharacteristically right-wing of me. But Nick Clegg, the former Deputy Prime Minister and leader of the Liberal Democrats, obviously a very big EU cheerleader. I think he was Deputy Director of Britain, Strong in Europe, something like that. He's now a big hotshot at Meta. He's the Global Affairs President, I believe. And he's gone crying on Twitter this week about red tape in the EU, about the expansion of Meta's new AI project. And one of the funnier parts is he was praising the UK for its open-mindedness about AI regulation, whereas the EU have had a bit of a nightmare with it. I think that's just one of those quite funny, unserious stories that if he'd done his job a little bit better, then the UK wouldn't be a new customer for Meta. I think that's just one of those...
You've got to laugh.
Just one of those funny stories that you see.
But I will challenge you on that, actually, because I actually agree with Nick Clegg, and Nick Clegg was someone that said, oh, you know, EU army will never happen, and then over recent years they've been saying we need to actually unify the armed forces throughout Europe. Now, Nick Clegg here talking about how Britain could flourish with AI and allow it to develop. I would actually argue that the Labour Party will strangle that golden goose through the kind of regulation that you think is so entirely laudable.
In what way?
In the way that they will say that it's dangerous, we can't have disinformation, people are making pictures of Sir Keir Starmer looking silly. Oh, well, we can't have that. His fragile little ego might be impacted. All of these things, I think, will lead to a petty set of regulations that strangle the entire industry.
Well, I don't think that's true. I mean, you know, I'm an effective accelerationist. I believe in, you know, bringing the industry into the country and really pushing it forward. But you have to have a level of regulation and you need to have safeguards in place because, you know, AI will dominate industries and it could lead to serious misinformation and disinformation. And you can't just go, oh, well, in the name of industry and freedom, we're just going to push those risks aside and just go ahead with it. There does need to be some safeguards.
Who is the arbiter of what is serious misinformation and disinformation?
Well, I think
Starmer.
Well, no,
that's true. God help us.
Well, no, I think it'd probably lie with the AI Safety Institute, which is made up of experts across the world.
God, that sounds sinister.
Yeah.
Well, the AI, it's been around. I think Rishi Sunak started it. In fairness.
Doesn't mean it's not sinister.
All right. Still ahead, we're going to answer your questions in Ask the Five. No topic off limits. I wonder if you've been kind to us this week. You're with the Saturday Five, live on GB News.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
National Trust Director General has said something rather curious. She's admitted that 70% of the charity's staff are Union Jack-hating progressive activists. Yes, this was speaking at a Labour Party fringe event. The boss of the charity, Hilary McGrady, acknowledged that there was a gap between her staff's views and the views held by the wider public. So was she being honest? Joining me now to discuss this is historian and broadcaster Rafe Haydel-Mankoo, who I believe is with me. Rafe, thank you very much indeed. Can this be true?
The founders of the National Trust and later figures involved in it, like my hero James Lees Milne, were really motivated by love of nation. But I think that love of nation in the Trust has become actively, you know, national self-loathing. And that's really the state of modern Britain. And with the Trust, I mean, what we've done is we've actually entrusted our national heritage to those people who actually actively despise our national heritage. And it's, it's utter madness.
Have these people wanted to take over charities like the National Trust for their political ends, or is it just something that happens? Is it just the type of people who work in charities?
This has been part of the long march through the institutions, that people need to understand that Britain is now a post-revolutionary society. So the buildings that house our institutions look the same, but the people who now run them bear no comparison to the generations who lovingly built and ran them. They are cuckoos in the nest, and we need to understand that. And of course, once you realize that, of course, that explains completely why, the National Trust and others have crudely tried to denigrate our national heroes and link them and their houses to colonialism and slavery, as they ludicrously tried to do.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the show. Now, a sad reminder that Alex Salmond has indeed passed away at the age of 69. We're joined now by the former SNP spokesman, Stuart Crawford, to remind us of the man's legacy. Stuart, thank you very much for your company. What will be, do you think, the enduring legacy of Alex Salmond?
Good evening. Well, I think that first and foremost, his enduring legacy will be that he is the man who took Scotland as close as it has ever come to becoming an independent nation again. And that was at the 2014 independence referendum, which he is leader of the independence movement and the SNP and the First Minister at the time lost, with 55% of the electorate who turned up for the referendum voting no and therefore staying part of the UK, and 45% voting yes to leave the UK. So the referendum was lost. And in the aftermath of that, he immediately resigned, which he himself admitted was retrospectively was probably a mistake, because he then handed over the leadership of the SNP and the independence movement to lesser people. And we probably, looking back on it, we will see that that was the high point, the high water tide of Scottish independence, and it's been diminishing ever since.
Now, also the fact of the matter is, right, that despite you can love the man or hate the man, but he really was, Stuart, a fantastic orator.
Oh, I think he was head and shoulders above, certainly head and shoulders above everybody else in the SNP. There's no one like him. There's no one there even now that can replace him as a leader and a persona. And one of the very few Scottish politicians who could hold their own at Westminster with the best orators. And I'm thinking about other people like Gordon Brown, who was a short time Prime Minister, and also Donald Dewar, who was First Minister in Scotland from the Labour Party. So he was right up there with them. And I think that debating Alex Salmond in Westminster was a challenge for many very competent MPs from all political parties. And in Scotland, when he was a member of the Scottish Parliament, there's nobody that could match him.
Yeah, indeed. All right, we'll leave that there. Thank you very much, Stuart. That's the former SNP spokesman, Stuart Crawford, there with his, well, remarks on Alex Salmond, who sadly passed away at the age of 69. Now, it's time for this. All right, we've got one. That was Stuart Crawford back again. Now, we've got one for you here. I want to ask this one. All right, let's get this one up. So one viewer asked this question. We've only got time for one. I'm so sorry. Now, one viewer asks, are Elon Musk's Optimus robots a good thing or a bad thing? Now, these are robots that they say will one day be fully autonomous. Well, not fully autonomous, they'll be controlled by humans. Controlled by humans, but ultimately they will be able to just do tasks for us, do all sorts for us, be a friend. Is it a good thing or a bad thing? Let's just, very briefly, let's go through this as a panel. Will?
It's an inevitable thing.
Good or bad?
I think it's bad. I think it will reduce human connection. I saw something awful the other day that said that there is an estimate that more women will have sexual relationships with robots than men come 2025. And we've got about
Bad.
Well, you best get moving. Renee?
Bad, very bad.
All right. I think actually, on the whole, I think good, because I think that actually it'll mean that people are looked after and aren't feeling so lonely.
That's the most unsound thing you've ever said.
I like robots.
So sad.
I love AI. I love AI. I love AI.
Cold embrace of
We are all God's
rationalist
creatures.
hellscape.
You need to get out more.
All right. We're going to have... Andy, very brief.
Bad.
All right. Leo's up next. I'll see you next week.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. We've got plenty of fine weather in store across the UK over the next day or so, but as we head into the new working week, things will turn more unsettled. We'll see some rain developing at times, but all the while, those temperatures starting to climb as well. At the moment, low pressure is moving off the scene out into the North Sea. That's allowing a ridge of high pressure to build in from the west, so things starting to quieten down, but a bit of a chilly northerly breeze developing as well. And certainly as we go into the overnight period, we'll hold on to quite a few showers in that northerly airstream across the north and northeast of the UK. Some wintry showers across the high ground in Scotland, but things will start to quieten down from the west as that ridge of high pressure builds in. Lots of clear weather developing, and certainly by the morning on Sunday, a touch of frost forming, particularly across the north of the UK where temperatures will dip below freezing. As for Sunday itself, then, we'll get off to a pretty showery start again, once up towards the north and northeast of Scotland. Again, a few of those showers a little bit on the wintry side across the mountains. Quite a keen northwesterly breeze still blowing here too. Further south across southwest Scotland into Northern Ireland and the north of England, mostly fine. Plenty of sunshine, although some high clouds starting to come in across Northern Ireland, turning that sunshine a little bit hazy. Quite hazy the sunshine too across parts of Wales and southwest England. So the best of the sunshine to start the day generally the further east you go. And we hold on to quite a bit of sunshine across many eastern parts of the UK through the day on Sunday. The showers in the far northeast tend to fade away. That brisk wind also easing through the day. But notice out towards the west, clouds starting to come in from the west there. And we'll start to see some patchy rain developing across parts of Northern Ireland and the west of Scotland by the very end of the day on Sunday. A chilly day up and down the country, highs no better than 7 to 9 Celsius in the north, perhaps up to 11 or 12 at best towards the south and southwest. As for Monday, well, a very unsettled day developing across the south of the UK. Cloudy skies, outbreaks of rain, especially during the morning. Rain towards the northwest starting to ease. All in all, things improving into the afternoon, the rain in the south easing, skies starting to brighten elsewhere. Things, though, turning generally unsettled into the coming week. Rain at times, but notice those temperatures also on the climb up to the high teens in Celsius.
Woo! A chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment. This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory. Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark meets at My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date. Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, coming up on the Saturday Night Showdown. A 13-year-old girl has a criminal record for kicking the door of a migrant hotel during the riots. Apparently, the men inside were terrified. Young girls in northern towns preying on migrant men. How times have changed. We'll be asking if it's a bit harsh criminalising children like this. And Alex Salmond, the huge figure in Scottish politics and a huge figure in Russian TV, well, just a huge figure in general, has sadly passed away. We'll be joined by a man who's insulted by him, Lewis Schaefer, the comedian. And it's Keir's first 100 days in power. Will he make it to the end of another 100? The only smart thing that he's done is selecting Angela Rayner as his deputy. She's such a dope that nobody will dare get rid of Starmer for fear of her taking over. This is your Saturday Night Showdown. Discussing all tonight's topics with me are my brilliant panel. Joining me tonight are the comedians, Aidan McQueen and Lewis Schaefer, and nutrition expert Lewis Schaefer. First, let's get your latest news headlines from Katie Brown.
Leo, thank you. A very good evening to you. It's just gone 8 o'clock. These are your latest headlines from the GB Newsroom. As you've been hearing tonight, the former First Minister of Scotland, Alex Salmond, regarded by many as a titan of Scottish politics, has died at the age of 69. He was reportedly giving a speech in North Macedonia this morning, and it's understood he died at some point